Shout out to my cats who knocked my water bottle onto the floor and ripped apart my Demi Boy beaded keychain, so that all I have left is the non-binary one. I came home. Normally, I'm very good at cat proofing. I usually put this water bottle up on the kitchen counter, but I left it on the coffee table because I thought I'd be gone for like 10-15 minutes. I was gone for like an hour. And I knocked this down onto the floor, and there were beads all over my hallway. So shout out to my cats. What's up, everyone? My name is Alex, and welcome to my little corner of the internet. Let's ignore the fact that I almost forgot my intro, because it was, what's up, everyone, Alex here for like 5 or 6 years, and then I switched it all of a sudden. So that's my bad. That's on me. Inconsistency that's what we do here. That's why my camera is not oriented correctly. Topic for gender troubleshooting. What microlabel should I use? Well, let's start with the fact that that's a trick question. There's a reason that I put that as the title, because that's literally what people are looking for a lot of the time when they're coming to me for answers. I get questions on my blog like, what microlabel should I use for this set of identities? I experience this. I like these pronouns. This is my AGAB. I don't know why my followers love to specify their AGAB. Thankfully, a lot of the time they're anonymous because it's not information I need to know. Your assigned gender at birth has nothing to do with your gender, really. I mean, it can affect the way that you have learned about gender, or that the way that like the concept of gender has influenced you and made you like think about your identity, but like you don't qualify for a label because of your AGAB. So let's get that out of the way. That'll be a topic in its own video, but a lot of people are looking for very specific labels. They're like, well, I experience like all this different stuff. Like I'm a boy sometimes, but the girl part fluctuates. But like on odd numbered days, I don't have a gender. And then sometimes, like, because I have a dissociative disorder, my gender's also this. So what's the label that encompasses all of that? And I don't usually suggest microlabels. I usually suggest similar labels, or I encourage the person to think further into their experience. Like, what do you feel comfortable being referred to as? What pronouns are you comfortable with? Try this label on. Does it make you feel like good? Like, do you find comfort in this label? Like, I try not to assign. I mean, that's what it feels like sometimes, that I'm assigning genders, but I usually try not to assign a microlabel to someone, because it's such a specific experience that like it's so easy to miss something. I could suggest a label and then it's like, oh wait, but also I experience this, or I don't experience this part of the label, so this is going to be wrong. People drive themselves crazy trying to overthink microlabels, and I had a video a while back talking about microlabels and my fear of using them, as if I had some obligation to use a microlabel to talk about my identity. And in the end, I realized that like I personally don't need a microlabel. I really like the idea that I can say I'm bigender or I'm a non-binary man, and I leave it up to the other person to ask questions. If they don't ask questions, then cool, whatever, you just know me as a non-binary man. It doesn't matter to me. But with the microlabel, it doesn't leave any questions other than, okay, can you explain that word? Because I don't know what that means. At least if I say I'm a non-binary man, I fit myself into like non-binary and man, and like those are the communities that I interact with. There's a general understanding of those two terms, and oftentimes how those two terms come together. Like people know what non-binary is, largely. People know what being a man is, largely, and People understand non-binary man as its own identity. I don't feel the need to be super, super specific. I also feel that I fit in with more communities when I'm keeping it more general. If I did use a micro label, I would want to make sure that I also have like a more general label that I go by, just in case I don't want to explain things, or I don't feel like people would understand it, or if I'm talking about myself, like coming out in real life, in person with like to somebody, I'd rather just call myself a transgender man. I'd rather not try to explain that I'm bigender, but I'm not part female. That's not part of it, like having to over explain the identity. So I always have my go-to broad label, but micro labels, I've considered calling myself by micro labels, but in the end it doesn't really matter, not to quote Linkin Park or anything. But yeah, I feel like there is an unintentional push to use micro labels. I feel like a lot of people are trying to find that perfect one word to describe their identity. Sometimes there is not just the one word that describes your identity. Instead of calling yourself hydrangea flux, which is fluctuating between the neutral male end of the spectrum, I believe that's what the term means, but I could call myself that, I guess. Or I could say, like, I'm a non-binary man and I experience neutrality. Like, you can have kind of add-ons to your identity. You don't need one single label. You can just say that, like, this is my experience. I'm a non-binary man, and like, if there is a reason for explaining that, then you could be like, okay, well, non-binary man to me is having a bigender identity where I'm mostly male and somewhat gender neutral, and there's not really any fluidity or fluctuation between the two. It's more like an on-off switch where sometimes it gets stuck in the middle. There's a lot of overlap between the identities, and one doesn't really exist without the other. But I don't feel the need to find an identity label that perfectly fits that. Sometimes there isn't a label, or sometimes micro labels can make things overly complicated. But I'm always going to advocate for micro labels. I always support micro labels, so don't get that wrong. Like, I love that there are so many terms for so many different experiences, but for me personally, I never try to push micro labels, and I never try to talk someone out of using a more broad term for themselves, because so many people think they can't. So many people feel like they can't call themselves non-binary without having an explanation attached to it. Like sure, I'm non-binary, but I can't use that label on its own. I see a lot of that. You can absolutely use a label just by itself. You don't have to use a micro label. So there we go. So the question, or the answer to what micro label should I use, is going to be, you're asking the wrong question. The question should be, should I use a micro label? Do I have to use a micro label? And the answer is no, you don't have to. But you can, and that's supported here. Both are supported here. Using them, not using them, both of those are very much supported here and encouraged. It's all in how you want to identify, how you want to refer to yourself as. So there you go. I plugged my blog and my zine in the last video, so go to theotherkind.tumblr.com. I don't post super regularly, but that's my main blog. It's where you'll see the most interaction. If I'm following you, I'll follow you from that blog, and it's just a place for resources to be compiled, so that you can see like master posts of different identities, different social issues. I try to compile information from different places all into one big spot. That's the bottom line. You don't have to use a micro label. I'm bad at ending these videos, but I am signing off for now. See you later.